board met tonight in executive session. We're now ready to meet in public session, continue our meeting in public session. The President's report will be short. The debate on Park in Trenton goes on. The changes that were outlined by the Commissioner last month have not been passed by the State Board of Education yet. They have opted to have more discussion of those changes, which of course include a reduction in the amount of park testing and reduction in the number of park tests at the high school level. Also a reduction in the amount that the test scores count in teacher evaluations in tested subjects. So there was a large joint Senate and Assembly Committee hearing on last Monday on park changes. The only person to give testimony was the Commissioner. And the State Board will meet again next week to continue the discussion. They're hoping, I think that in the Department of Ed at least, to take a vote on the park changes at that State Board meeting so that school administrators will know what to do in terms of students who fail park tests and what avenues they have for graduation. So it's a subject of ongoing discussion. It's an important discussion, but I'm not sure there will be an end anytime soon. And that's the President's report. Superintendent's report.
Just to start off with, we have roughly 30 visiting students from China in the school this week, so we're very excited to have them. We have an ongoing relationship with a couple schools from China. If you remember last spring, we had a group of students go to China and visit those schools, so returning the favor. And this is the second time we've hosted a large group of students from China, so we're very pleased to be able to offer them that experience and have our students experience some cultural experiences. So they're here for the entire week. This time of year we have typical couple of district reports that have to happen. In our next Board of Ed meeting, I'll be doing the district testing report. This Board of Ed meeting, Jack DeWitt's going to be doing the HIB and violence and vandalism report. I'm going to call him up and turn off a couple lights so you can see the report better.
And we apologize for those of you who have to turn.
I apologize in advance. I did make the font as large as I possibly could. I remember from last time.
Could you
And now
focus
I see
it?
what Mr. Phillips was talking about.
Could it get focused?
I need a ladder.
What's that?
It's out of focus.
I wouldn't let it.
I mean, because I moved close to see if I could.
Report on president intimidation, bullying, HRC investigation, trainings, and some programs.
All right, as long as you guys can read it. I will read it out loud. I have my copy in case I think so. It's 3 parts. It's the summary report for harassment, intimidation, bullying, part 2, which is our report from results from January through July of this year. It's also our, includes our violence and vandalism report, and also we received our school self-assessment scores. So I've also included that in the presentation. There we go. It's getting smaller. As previously reported on the May 14th meeting, the system that changed for the state. They used to call it the EVER system. It's electronic violence and vandalism report. They had gone to a new system. It's the student safety data system, and it combined all of the data and put it together in one report rather than having 2 specific systems where we would upload our hit incidents and where we would also include a separate system on violence and vandalism. It has it all broken down into one system, including one system out of it.
This is a joke.
It will be posted tomorrow night online, tomorrow morning online also. This was just the breakdown from the state and that they had originally required us to report. Normally what would occur is that we have to report out within about a month after we presented the results into the state. The first part of the year, results are due by January 15th, and we usually present out at February or March meeting. The second part is usually from January through July, and we present out at the beginning Board of Ed meeting. What had happened was with the new system with the state, there was a delay in actually opening up the system, so the results weren't available to be inputted until April, so our last presentation, it was pushed back to May. That also pushed back our school self-assessment scores, which we would normally receive at some point in January. We actually just received those scores in May 24th, I believe, of this year. And that's actually the next slide. The school self-assessment, each school is required to, they have a rubric. They look at 8 core areas. They look at harassment, intimidation, bullying. They look at the laws. They look at how our training is. They look at how training is for the teachers, how we're following the rules, things like that. And you'll see I have the scores up there for each of them the last 3 years. We just received these, I'm going to move up, I can't even see it from here. On May 29th is when we received the results. And over the last 3 years, Glenridge High School has gone up to 74 out of a possible 78 points, while Ridgewood, Forest, and Linden actually remained the same, and our district average had gone up from a 75 to a 76. And again, each of those is a maximum of 78. There's 8 core areas, and in each of the areas, the principal or designee in the building has to go and see where they fit in, grade themselves, and then provide documentation to determine each of their scores. This was previously reported at the May 14th meeting, and this is a breakdown of the student safety data system. It includes not only the incidents that have occurred, which include violence, vandalism, and they can't even see violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and harassment, intimidation, confirmed incidents, but it also includes other incidents, our alleged, which is our investigations that had occurred, our trainings, and our programs. This was presented at the May 14th meeting. I included that on there just so we could break it down and we can show a comparison for period 1, period 2, and then the total altogether. When we look at reporting period 2, it includes the same information. It has the incidents that had occurred across the district as it had in the first one. There was a total of 7 incidents that included confirmed violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIB that was confirmed. It also lists on there other incidents leading to removal. Those are incidents that would not fall under violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, but it would require that someone was removed from school for a period of time. A good example of that is if someone was in class, they had a ruler, the teacher told them to stop banging the ruler, it kept occurring, the teacher came over to them, they accidentally hit the teacher with it, the teacher was clearly hurt, but it wasn't something that was done on purpose, so it wasn't an assault, but it was something where they might have been hit and the student had a punishment, they were removed from school for at least half a day based on that. So that's what's considered the other incidents leading to removal from school. So again, the reporting period 1 was presented at the May 14th meeting. This is the most recent data. This is from January 1st of this year through June 30th, and this is the second part of the last school year. At that point, there were 3 total incidents that occurred that included violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIB confirmed. There were 12 alleged investigations that occurred at that point, and 74 trainings and 72 programs across the entire district. When we look at the total data, there were...
Is it broken up separately? So that's the sum of the HIPs plus violence and vandalism?
Yes, yes.
Down later?
I do, I'd have it broken down later, yes. So in the past, what the state would allow us to do, violence and vandalism was inputted into one system, and HIPs were inputted into another, and now it's combined all under one umbrella. But I did break it down on the next couple of slides. So our totals for the 2017-2018 school year include 2 incidents at Ridgewood Avenue and 8 incidents at Glenridge High School, a total of 10 incidents. And again, that includes violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and confirmed HIBs. There was 23 investigations. 1 had occurred at Forest, 13 at Ridgewood, 9 at Glenridge High School. And then the number of trainings across the district. There were 122 trainings that were across the district and 105 programs that occurred across the different buildings.
Excuse me, Jeff?
I think we're doing questions after.
Yes.
Okay,
We're just gonna do
okay,
questions.
all right, that's fine.
And some of it will start to get together in the following slides. So for period 1, there was one confirmed HIB incident that occurred at Ridgewood Avenue, and this was previously presented at the May 14th meeting. And that had occurred at Ridgewood. It was, the type of bullying was verbal, it was intentional, it was found to be a protected class. During period 2, there was a total of 2 confirmed HIB incidents, one at Ridgewood and one at Glenridge High School. The one at Ridgewood was verbal, it's intentional, it was based on race and or color, and then there was remediation and discipline that was imposed, and at the high school it was electronic communication. Intentional, and the areas, the nature of bullying was gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, mental, physical, and or sensory disability. So it was found to be under all of those areas. So for a total of 2. In period 1, there were 6 incidents, confirmed incidents of violence, vandalism, substance, and weapons, and those were broken down at that point into 5 substance use or possession and 1 trespassing. And in period 2, there was 1 that was found. It was 1 substance use issue. So there was a total of 7 incidents that occurred across. Now, what I was explaining on the first slide, and I think Mr. Bonnet had asked, there's a total of 10 incidents that had occurred. And when we look at that to see how are we going to break that down, what does that 10 include? Because the state has them all inputted in one system, when we look at the slides, there it is. So there's a total of 7. So there were 7 confirmed violence, vandalism, and substance issues, and there was 3 confirmed HIBs, which is a total of 10 incidents that were reported to the state, that were confirmed incidents. I have listed just up here the staff that was included in each of those. It's either one of the anti-bullying specialists, which are assigned by building. There's also the principals in each building, which are involved in the investigations. And a breakdown of the trainings and programs. There was 127 trainings that occurred across the district. There were 125 programs. And some of the examples of the programs, there was the Abilities Awareness Week, which occurred at Forest Avenue this year. There was, Linden Avenue had Aesop's Pops. It was character building through classic Aesop tales. Ridgewood Avenue had the We Schools. Glenridge High School had Heroes and Cool Kids, which is something that they do every year. And there was a variety of trainings and workshops that occurred for the administration and the bullying specialists. I think the questions go to the board first.
Is that for?
Yes.
Okay. We'll follow our normal procedure. Board members, if you can reassemble, and audience members, we'll take questions from the board and then open it up for our first public comment period. So we'll start with board members who have
For staff?
For staff, yeah.
And why are high schools considered anti-bullying?
Character education. Along with the abilities fair that we was more character education. So they were looking at the differences in students. Right, they were looking at abilities, and something that we're going to try to do at Linden and also at Ridgewood Avenue.
Other questions or comments? Question from Al.
On the Heroes and Cool Kids program, I know it's mentioned under Glenridge High School, but I know they just help deliver, or they work with kids who are younger than them, but is that the middle school, the Ridgewood Avenue School, or what grades do the students work with?
5th grade.
How are they aligned?
They're aligned with 5th graders. That's actually up there. It's probably
The 10th graders are the Heroes and Cool Kids.
Okay.
they go down with 5th graders.
Get trained, have a session, and go down and teach lessons to the 5th graders.
Other comments or questions from the board? Okay, this is the first public comment period for comments, obviously, on this presentation. Let's start with that. If you can give me your name and just confirm that you're a Glenridge resident, and then tell me what's on your mind. Yes, Mrs. Song.
Yeah, first of all, it went pretty fast. You might want to check the year on your cover sheet. I think it said 2017, but I'm sure that was just an oversight. I just want to say that I found this presentation totally unacceptable. First of all, it is not listed on the agenda And I have previously brought up in other meetings, unless I missed something, I don't see it there. What? Under superintendent's report?
It was on the agenda.
Okay. Was it on the one sent to people online?
I believe so.
Okay, I'll double check that. But previously, there had been issues with being able to see this, and we had brought it up to Mr. DeWitt. And I would, when I present in a business setting, I make sure that everything is working ahead of time, that people can see. We know we've had problems with this before, to be honest with you. I am sure I would probably have other questions, except for I could barely see, and it wasn't just me, other people had to move forward. And it wasn't in focus. You know, the numbers went through so quickly when you barely could see, it was very hard to really digest. And I would just think that for something as important as HIV, that we have had issues with the presentation before, that it would have been more professional and that at least the audience could see it.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Ana Lilia Mejia, my address is 43 Victor Avenue. A couple questions. One, are the categories provided by the state, or is this a district definition?
For HIP?
Yes.
Yes, by the state.
So the state is giving you whatever classification.
Yeah.
And there were 10 reported incidents, 3 that were confirmed.
There was 10 confirmed incidents that included violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIP. So a total of 10 combined. Yes.
10 total.
Of course.
3
that were
hit.
confirmed.
Okay.
3 of those that were confirmed HIP incidents. There are other investigations that occurred across the year. I think there was 29. The year before.
29 incidents or 29 HIB?
Investigations that occurred before.
Investigations,
HIB investigations.
HIB
in general,
investigations. Okay. And then of the confirmed HIB, how many were towards protected classes, as you say?
yeah. All 3.
All 3?
All 3. That's part of the definitions. They would have to impact the protected class. So yes, actually, and it was on.
So essentially bias incidents. I'm sorry, I'm new
Sure.
to this, so essentially that number really is just bias incidents?
Well, there was 3. There's a type of nature of bullying, so it has to impact one of the areas. So the nature of the bullying, the one incident that occurred in period. I'm sorry, but this one is even better. The one incident that occurred at Ridgewood Avenue, it was verbal, so it was between students. It was found to be an intentional incident. It wasn't something that was accidental or unintentional, and it was found to be of race or color. That was
So it was directed to, and the substance of it was, okay.
Yes. And then the incident that occurred at Glenridge High School was electronic communications,
Uh-huh.
and that was intentional also. And the nature of bullying, it was towards gender, sexual orientation, mental, physical disability. There was multiple categories that it hit. So it could be more than one.
Okay.
That was the 2, and then if we look at the one period prior, there was one incident that occurred at Ridgewood. It was verbal, it was intentional, and it was a protected class.
Ellen, did you?
What, I
I'm sorry,
have
can
one more.
interject some, maybe that might just help clarify, because I think we want to give you all the information that you need, especially since you mentioned you're new to this. I think one of the common areas of confusion is HIB versus any other, investigations in general, in that maybe you can clarify that. If there's any incident, everything's investigated. HIB is a classification that's determined after an investigation has
I
been made.
understand.
And although there are, classifications that are reported to the state, other incidents that are not qualified or deemed HIB are still dealt with. It's not a higher or a lower, it's not sort of a ranking system insofar as how severe an issue is handled. It's really classified. Anyway, Jack can speak to that more clearly, but I just want to make sure you understand, or everyone understands, that HIV has its own class. It's a way to classify an incident. And maybe Jack can speak to
Right.
that, because I think a lot of people think that if something's classified as HIV, that it holds a different weight than another incident that may
Code of
happen in
conduct,
school. that isn't motivated by one of the qualifications that falls under the HIP.
I did understand. I guess I was trying, my initial questions were to ensure that I had the basic points before I continued with additional questions about what I'm getting is that there were incidents that were essentially, the HIB classification is essentially bias incidents.
No.
What I'm hearing is that HIB is towards race, gender, abilities. Is that, am I not understanding that correctly? Okay, so then I understood. My final question was, how are you tailoring I would just love to hear more about how you're tailoring the trainings, and again, how are they going directly to the students? Are they going to the teachers? Is it broad? Is the substance of the training tailored to address the types of incidents that you're having? Because, if you have an incident that involves, for example, race or ethnicity or gender, then are the trainings that you're giving both the children and the teachers tailored to actually directly address the issue of race, gender, homophobia, et cetera?
Or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Or whatever
whatever.
bias incident. Just
Yeah, so when we gather the data, that's part of what we're looking at for the self-assessment that the schools do. And the principals are looking to see what are their areas of need. And then district-wide, we're also doing that. So depending on the age, for Forest, for Linden, it's going to be more character education building. It's going to be understanding the differences. As they get older, it is going to focus in on bias. It might focus in on understanding the differences in sexual orientation, things like that, where they're trying to determine or trying to provide sensitivity. We want to call it sensitivity training, but being able to understand other people. But it is based, and then we're looking at that data to tailor what our trainings and programs are.
And
Yes.
who is, I lied, I have another follow-up question based on your response. Who is providing said training? Do we have do we contract with professionals that deal with racial bias, gender bias, homophobic bias, et cetera?
There are programs that are out there. There's programs
But
that
what are we using in
a whole spectrum. It's not just one company. It's not just one. The principals are gathering. They're going to conferences. When we're at different conferences, they might have people that are presenting there. We've also had our law firm come in and do some presentations to the staff about HIB investigations in general, understanding. We've also done that with the anti-bullying specialist in each of the building, having them get training for what to look for when they're doing the trainings. And then as far as the programs are concerned, it's going back to the principals when we have our administrative meetings, sitting down and determining what the trends are and then focusing in. So if it is...
So the principal decides what company or institution or entity to partner with, or is it going through you?
It's a conversation that we're having administratively. So it's going through, it's myself, it's talking with Dirk, it's talking with the principals in a group, finding out sometimes they have resources that they've used. Sometimes the companies that might do a presentation at Ridgewood Avenue, it might be appropriate for coming up to the high school. Things like that, they might have multi-level presentations. Sometimes they include parent presentations at night. We had one last year that they came in and they...
Ryan Halligan.
Thank you. Ryan Halligan's father came in and he did one on cyberbullying. And they did presentations for not just the parents at night, but they did during the day too. And they'll often tailor them based on this one for Ridgewood Avenue for the older students, this one for the high school students, and that focused on cyberbullying. Because it's probably one of the biggest concerns right now, cyberbullying.
Okay, I have a whole list more about that.
I think that with regard to your question on training, we're fortunate tonight that our attorney Athena Cornell is here. Can you talk, Athena, about the training that you provide to the faculty on HIV?
So we talk to our folks, both the ABSs in the schools, each of the schools, the anti-bullying specialists in each of the schools, as well as the administrators in terms of what the legal requirements are, what the investigation should consist of, and that sort of thing. But more than that, in terms of the educational piece, the state does training for a lot of our folks here, and we have different entities that are coming in. The board gets trained when they go to conferences, so it's sort of ongoing. I don't know how we could say it's, 3 groups and that's all it's limited to. It's varied depending on the age of our kids, what the issues we're trying to address are, and what's sort of age appropriate, and that message and how to get it out to them.
Mrs. Sal.
Yes, so I understood you to say, and I saw all the heads nod, and you asked, are these HIV incidences concerning or bias related or bias underlying? And he said, and we talked about protected classes and race and gender and all the traditional protected classes. And everybody said yes. And are you referring to only the ones that you found? Because as many of us know, the HIV law enumerates the protected traditional, but it adds at the end, or any other distinguishing characteristic. And nobody has brought that up. Everybody just nods that it's protected classes, but there have been law cases that have found HIV, for example, when somebody made fun of somebody for being a vegan, when somebody called somebody a horse's ass, a variety of what we don't think of as bias related, but they fall under the umbrella of other distinguishing characteristics. And since Ms. Cornell is here, and Mr. DeWitt, feel free to tell me that is not correct, but that is in the law. So, is that correct?
It's one piece of it. It's
Right,
also looking
one
at
piece.
the actual perceived characteristic or other distinguishing characteristics that's potentially disrupting, interfering with the school day, and that someone that has a reasonable idea that it would impact that other person. So it's multi-tiered. So yes, that is one part of it, correct.
It's a common misconception that it's only, quote, traditional protected classes. The other thing,
Do you have anything to add to that?
I think Jack addressed it. It's clearly, no law is going to have an exhaustive list of things. There's going to be some other language, depending on the circumstances, depending on the motivation of the kids. It's very fact-specific.
And for those who are interested, as you know, on our homepage, there's a tab on the upper right that says policies. If you want to look at the HIV policy, which is 26 pages long, it is 5512. Other questions or comments? Is anyone else before?
No,
I'd like to
that's
give
fine.
everybody a turn. I'm sorry, behind Mrs. Hall.
I have a different topic on the agenda. If we move on off this topic, I have on an agenda item.
Okay. Anyone else? No, I'll get back to you, Mrs. Hall. Okay, Mrs. Hall.
okay, so could you again, the numbers went fast and I really couldn't see them. Refresh our memory on both Ridgewood and the high school, the number of alleged incidents of HIV, we're only talking about HIV here, a number alleged versus number found HIV for both of those schools.
Absolutely.
And then I have a follow-up question for that.
For the entire year?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Okay, so if we look at the entire year, again, it's broken down. There are alleged incidents. There was 1 investigation that occurred at Forest Avenue School. There was 13 investigations that occurred at Ridgewood Avenue. And there was 9 investigations that occurred at Glenridge High School. So those were investigations of alleged incidents. They were not found to be.
Okay,
Of those 23, right, then we have 10 that were confirmed incidents. Of the 10, 3 were found to be HIV. They were confirmed HIV.
Right.
And then when we break that down,
No, I don't need that part, to be honest with you.
Okay.
If you could just go back to the other slide with the numbers. So I guess my question is, at Ridgewood, you found HIV in 2 incidents out of 13. Am I reading that correctly?
across the year,
Yes.
there was 2, but yes.
There was 2 confirmed, but 13 alleged. At the high school, there were 9 alleged and 8.
1. one confirmed. Remember this 8 incident, and I know it's underneath here.
Right.
This incident includes violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and
Oh,
confirmed.
because I
So,
asked specifically on HIV. You have, but just the HIV numbers?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's right on the next page. Period 1 and period 2 are there. So you'll see there's Ridgewood Ave had 1.
Okay.
This is period 1, which was presented in May. And there was 1 incident that was confirmed HIV.
Out of how many alleged hit?
We're in period 1. There were 7. There were 7 on period 1.
Okay.
There were 7 investigations, and 1 was found to be in
Okay.
period 1. In
And-
period 2 for Ridgewood, there were 6 alleged, and again, 1 was found to be.
Okay. And then
At the high school, there were 4 incidents, or 4 alleged investigations that occurred. So there was 4 alleged incidents, and there was 1 that was found to be. And in the second part of
Wait,
the
it says 6 up there. I'm reading it correctly.
again,
Oh,
incidents includes violence, vandalism,
I thought you
substance,
were
weapons,
breaking out just HIV. That's what I kept asking, just HIV.
and that's why I went to this screen,
Okay.
and this has it there. Right, Ridgewood, I was just showing you the total number on the other
Okay,
page.
so the high school had none, but,
In period 1,
yeah,
had none, and Ridgewood had 1.
yeah.
In period 2, Ridgewood had 1, and Glenridge High School had 1. So there was a total of 3 that were found to be confirmed.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, for the
And
total
just a
here.
reminder that these slides will be up online tomorrow morning, so.
Yeah,
um,
I hear you.
Apologies for the legibility from here, but you can see them.
But what I'm
Do what I
asking
do,
is,
make the fonts
What is the
larger.
ratio, if, without, again, the flipping back and forth and sort of the difficulty in seeing,
and I'm specifically asking about HIV without the violence and vandalism mixed in. What is the ratio of alleged versus actual for Ridgewood versus the high school?
Well, you gotta give me a minute to do the math on that. Well, there were 2 incidents.
Yeah, Ridgewood was 1 to 7, right?
Okay.
Right.
I don't
The
know.
other's 2 to, what?
It was 1 to 7, and then it was 1 to 6. That's 2 out of 13, so.
So roughly the same? I mean, not
Yeah,
exactly,
2 out of
but.
13, and then at the high school, there would be 10, 1 out of 10. So 2 out of 13, 1 out of 10.
Okay,
I have to take out a
okay,
calculator to do the
okay,
percentage.
okay, but that
But there was
gives me-
23 total,
Yeah,
and there was 2 and 1.
okay,
So what
thank
is, so
you.
what is the question?
My question was, what were the ratios? Because,
Other questions or comments? Yes, I'm sorry, Charlie.
Charlie Breslin, Glenridge. So if they're not rated as HIV, are they still inappropriate conduct?
Yes, they, yes,
So,
yes.
I mean, because, and who does the investigation? Is it the child study team or the bully counselor?
Sure. There's an anti-bullying specialist in each of the buildings.
Right.
At the high school, that's Ms. Kobolinski.
Right.
She's often assisted by the assistant principal, so this year it would be either Mr. Liddy, Dr. Harris, and then Mr. Waller oversees the investigation. And they would be the ones that would determine if it meets the criteria.
Is there a difference in consequence if it's HIV versus just inappropriate?
No.
So the
The
purpose.
same act, whether it's HIV, let's say it met an HIV definition, and it was the same act that didn't meet it, or what, because it didn't.
So it's like.
The consequences would be the same.
So in these cases, in these 13 cases, what did we come up with? In 13 cases, 100% were situations that required
Consequences.
There was the
consequences
consequence,
that
right.
were dealt with within the school, but only 10 of them rate to 10% or whatever the percentage rates to be reported.
Correct. Those were determined to meet HIV legal
Right.
definition.
And is the purpose of this just for statistical record keeping or?
It's
what
a
is-
reporting.
It's, the state requires it as part of the HIV law
Right.
that we report out regularly. People tend to think that there is a hierarchy of offenses with HIV at the top, and that
Right.
is not correct. HIV is a certain legal classification.
So would you say, I'm just understanding what, I mean, so is this to determine if we're on par with the state or above or below, or is this just, hey, we did
The
the
state
10% of
collects
these,
this
so-
data the law requires that the state collects
Right.
this data. I don't believe that, obviously, if the state, if the DOE had a concern, they would speak to.
We would be contacted, I guess, if
Right.
our numbers were extremely high, extremely low, I would imagine.
Definitely. We'll
So,
let that one.
Yeah, I just would like to suggest, given the issues, and I think some of the questions certainly take longer when it's hard to see the presentation, that in the future, if it can't be visibly presented on the screen, it would be really helpful to have handouts of the presentation here so that people could look at it. It would probably cut the discussion time in half and be much more efficient. And the fact is, I know you're gonna post it tomorrow, but we're not all sitting here with the resources, including Ms. Cornell, to ask questions. So if we don't have the tech, maybe we can go back to the old fashioned.
thank you. I'm always in favor of the old-fashioned way. Because then if the lights go out, you can still function. So, okay. Any other questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is on a different agenda item, so I don't know the one.
Can you state your name and address, please?
What's that?
Can you state your name?
Yeah, it's Diane Preston. I'm with Lambert Jones. Do you need my address?
No.
I just had a question about the mold remediation. And there were some emergency contracts listed in the agenda that add up to quite a bit of money. And I'm wondering, how does that come out of the budget? Where is that in the budget? And just kind of where that money comes from. That was my first question. Then my other comment on that same topic is, and perhaps there was a broader communication I missed, but I had talked to some parents or heard from some parents that were really worried about the safety of the mold in the school, and they weren't band parents, so they didn't get that first communication about that it was contained as a band room. So I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of let parents know. I think there were some other schools in the area that closed because of mold, and so at about the same time we were having it. And I know it was contained here, but I think maybe that some parents needed a little more information on that to feel safe.
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple things. One, welcome Barbara Murphy as our new school business administrator. Day one, this is the issue she had to deal with. So welcome, Glen Ridge. I'll let Barbara speak a little bit about covering the emergency costs for the removal. As far as communication, the mold was isolated in the band room, so I know the band parents were notified immediately to let them know that there was an issue, that we were moving those classes. I know separate emails went out to the marching band because of they needed to prepare for competitions, which included cleaning their uniforms and making sure that they were ready for the competition they were having later that week. Which they want, by the way. I will speak to the principal, building principal, make sure when he has that type of communication that it's going out to the entire building to ease some of the concerns that were out there. I'll let Barbara talk a little bit about it.
I would just say that in the budget, there's always a little bit of money for emergency repairs because you expect that to happen every year, that something's going to come up that needs to be addressed. And this was something that we just had no choice, that all of these things that we did, we just had to do for the safety and health and safety of the students.
Okay, so it's a,
What Mr. Phillips didn't say, which he said in other presentations, is that the band room is the only room in the district that is below grade without windows. And we, of course, did have very hot, sticky conditions for quite a while. Other schools had widespread mold. They had to close down multiple classrooms, or in some cases, a whole school. That was not the case with us.
just a follow-up on the budget. Is this something that's going to be submitted to insurance and maybe recouped?
So unfortunately, mold remediation isn't part of our general liability, and so it falls under the environmental policy that we have, which is $100,000 deductible. So unfortunately, we won't be getting anything back on this, but I'm still submitting to insurance in case something else comes up this year.
Other questions or comments? Okay, board members, let's continue with our agenda. It is not the first meeting of the month, so we do not have committee or liaison reports unless anyone has something that is time sensitive. Anyone? Okay. You have in your package minutes from exec and regular sessions of June 11th and July 23rd. Before I ask anyone else, Barbara, on the regular session minutes of June 11th, under A4, there should be an abstention. Okay. Does anyone else have any changes to the minutes? That's on the June 11th regular session minutes. Okay, if there are no changes or additions, deletions, may I have a motion? Tim, would you move the minutes?
Yes, I move M1.
May I have a second? Second from Tracy. Any further discussion? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Campbell? Mr. Drew?
Aye.
Ms. Hilbert? Abstain from June 11th, aye for July. Okay. Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Aye. Ms. St. Aubert? Aye. Dr. Yowers Rivas? Aye. Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, personnel. David, would you move the personnel items?
Move P1 through P8.
Okay, and have a second.
Second.
In keeping with our rules, personnel items are discussed in executive session. Does anyone have any reason why we should not vote on these personnel items? All right, Barbara, when you're ready.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Drew?
Aye.
Ms. Hilbert? Aye. Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Aye. Ms. St. Aubert? Aye. Dr. Yowers Rivas? Aye. Ms. Ginsburg? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, Michael, curriculum.
Yes, I move C1, including addendum to parts of C1, so I move all of that.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ally H. Any discussion on any of these field trips? No discussion? When you're ready, Barbara.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Drew?
Aye.
Ms. Hilbert? Aye. Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Aye. Ms. St. Aubert? Aye. Dr. Yowers Rivas? Aye. Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Before we move the business items, I'd like to draw your attention to B7 and B8, which are gifts. The first B7 is a donation of innovation grants in the amount of $3,745 to several teachers, thanks to the foundation. I know, Ellie, you'll convey that when you go in her. And also B8, the Glen Ridge Home and School Association gave $200, for the memorial to Cecilia Lynch, late and very well-loved high school teacher. And now, Tim, would you move business items?
Yes, I move B1 through B11.
There's Yeah.
another public comment period in a couple minutes.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Michael.
Sorry.
Is there any discussion of any of the business items?
I just want to commend Barbara on her action in the first week of her job, both resolving that, the band room, but also if people noticed that we did get some of the bids back for maintenance services on our building automation systems, and Barbara's also come up with some creative ways to repackage the proposal go out, so we're not cutting scope in order to get under budget, but we feel relatively confident that when we go back out for RFP, that we'll be able to hit our budget numbers. So really great job.
Barbara got a 10-second honeymoon in this system. Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Drew?
Aye.
Ms. Hilbert? Aye. Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Aye. Ms. St. Aubert? Aye. Dr. Yowers Rivas? Aye. Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we've come to the second public comment period. Oh, have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on the addendum items? None? Okay, seeing none. Barbara?
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLue?
Aye.
Ms. Gilbert?
Aye.
Mr. Kettle?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Ms. St. Aubern? Dr. Yaris Ramos? Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we have come to the second public comment period for questions or comments on agenda or other items. So your hand first. All about yours, all about yours.
Karima Ravenel, Glen Ridge. I just had some questions about the ESEA grant. Could someone talk a little bit more about the plans for each of those title funds? Maybe Mr. Phillips?
The Title I funds we use in order to provide students that have been identified as needing extra math help. So that's either, we've hired a teacher, there's everything associated with offering that help. All supplies are covered in that title, the Title I. And we do offer after-school help, and this is grades pre-K or K?
K through 6.
K through 6. The other two grants, Jack, the Title II, Title PD money?
It's professional development.
For which one? Both of them?
Yes.
And what in particular?
Title II and Title IV, both.
Conquer Math is, which we send our teachers all the way from K to the high school teachers to training with Nancy Schultz, who runs Conquer Math. We've been doing that for a number of years. She's been terrific, and we've received positive reviews. And Nancy has presented for our parents here a few years ago. So she's done a terrific job. And
Last year, we used some of the Title III money for, we had a need for personal control techniques in the district, so we sent some of the child study team people and some of the teachers out and to work on not just verbal de-escalation, but also for some of the needier students that might have behavioral issues, training on how to handle them. And we also sent one of those people went out to become a trainer. So in the following years, we won't have to send everyone out, we can keep them in-house.
And that's for Title IV-A?
That was I think they came out of Title III last year, I believe.
Okay, what about Title IV-A?
that is,
So Title
That's
I
four.
is for extra
that was
math
four.
help.
That's four.
That's four.
Title I was the extra math, yes.
Okay, Title II is professional development for the Conquer Math, and then Title IV-A is,
Title IV was also used for professional development.
and that's for math also?
that was a training that you just.
That was the training that I was just mentioning. Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't Title III, okay. Thank you.
You're next.
Again, I'm not even here. Could you provide just a brief synopsis of what were the policy changes that you all just approved?
Oh, the KIB changes. Yes.
Those are state mandated changes. All the school districts throughout the state had to adopt those changes. Basically, there's three changes that are significant. One is it gives the principals the right to determine not to investigate a situation based on the facts that are given to them at that time. If they don't feel there's a need to do a HIB investigation, they can choose not to do so. They must notify the superintendent, though, and the parent has a right to appeal that decision if they don't agree with it. Another is when we inform the parents in writing, we also have to tell them what the motivating characteristic is that was included in that HIB, and that was something we didn't have to do in the past. And the third component is our district anti-bullying specialist, which is Mr. Whit back there. If we have a child who's placed out of district and there's an HIB incident in that district, he has to, being that it's a child from our school, he has to do the investigation.
In an approved public special private school.
And those are all to comply with changes in legislation and regulations. Yes, Mrs. Sullivan.
If you have a question, training, you refer heard too, Mr. DeWitt, that teachers or students or whatever go through, is that a matter of public record?
What do you mean, is it a matter?
The training, who was trained, the dates, who provided the training, what the topic is. Is that a matter of public
For
record?
the PCT that we were just talking about?
For
or-
for HIV that you were talking about?
I know we submitted it into the state. I don't know if it's operable. I'm not sure. I don't know if it is or not. I have to look into that. I know we do
believe
have.
it is. I believe it is. But would you let me know?
Sure.
I mean, I'd appreciate that.
Athena, can you speak to that? Did you hear the question?
I did hear the question. I'm not sure what information we're required to submit to the state, so I'd have to take a look.
But if you submit it to the state, is it a matter of public record then?
I don't know what the format is, so I'd have to look. I don't know what
So-
the requirements are.
Will somebody get back to me on that one?
Sure.
Sure.
That would be you?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Two other things. One, I think this has been a very good discussion on HIV with a lot of great questions, which brings me to the point that I brought up, I think this will be the fifth time. I really would urge, whether it's the district or any school, somebody to, I know you offer a couple of HIV quote trainings in the evenings for parents. Why don't you have an HIV training that explains both the rights and the obligations of parents for parents? Because there's a lot of misconception, and I think it would save you all a lot of time, and certainly be interesting to many parents. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
The other comment is, I received I forget the title, but basically a series of events that are happening in Ridgewood this week, the week of something. And one of the items was, one of the days, come to school and take a selfie with your friend on a red carpet. Are you all familiar with that handout, Mr. Phillips?
Yeah.
Okay. So what really struck me was at Ridgewood, the children are between grades 3 and 6. And the own presenter last year, and you mentioned his name earlier, that talked about cyberbullying, he advocated, as do many professionals, a wait till late for cell phones, precisely because of the issues with cyberbullying. Now, we all know that some parents work, there's, reasons parents need to have, children need to have it, in which case they advocate, they tell you how to set it up so your children don't have access to social media. So I'm just wondering if advocating an idea that requires a cell phone, A, it makes the children who don't have one feel bad. It excludes them from an activity. And two, it appears to advocate cell phones for children between grades 3 and 6, when we know that there's cyberbullying issues that can be tied to that. And I just wondered if that was the best message to be sending. Couldn't we have come up with a different activity that sent the same message that didn't involve cell phones?
Thank you. We'll take note of that. Yes.
I would like to just state that I completely echo and support this idea of a parent training on HIB, both detailing what exactly it is, what it isn't, how parents are being informed of, whether their child was either the victim or the accused, I hate all of those all of those words for children, but, a participant in any way on either end of an incident. And we have every beginning of the school year, we have new parent orientation, which the superintendent and yourself have been at. We have, plenty, school meetings, we have back to school pizza. It just seems like this is at such a high level of importance. My child is starting 2nd grade, and I know nothing about this very, very just important area. I would love to
It's a reporting
have
statute.
additional information.
Yeah,
Yeah, but-
I know at the new parent presentation, at least at Linden, I attended that one, I didn't attend the Forest. The principal did go there. I attended some guidance meetings at the high
It's
school.
in passing. I'm talking about a detail, there's plenty of opportunity, and I'm sure that there's plenty of parents who would want to participate in, okay, I would volunteer to participate in any way to just provide additional information.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Solomon?
Just would like to comment on the comment from Mr. Campbell that it's a reporting statute. And, of course, it is, but it is also my understanding that the intent of the statute was to help change the culture within schools to stop HIV from happening at first. So, my understanding, and someone can correct me, is that the intent, and it goes back to the Tyler Clementi incident, the Rutgers student. It's bigger than reporting. The intent is to try and change the culture within the schools. So to me, it's a lot more important than just reporting.
I agree. I was in the gallery when it was debated and passed in the legislature, and certainly that was the intent. As you said, Tyler Clementi was a Rutgers student who unfortunately took his own life. And it was an
After
effort.
a lot of voting.
And human behavior and student behavior being what it is it was an effort to create awareness, to create change in school climate, which is an ongoing, perpetual effort. So it is both. As many laws are, it is both, and all schools, I think, have acknowledged that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Phillips, did you happen to pull those numbers that Mrs. Sawa asked for at the last board meeting?
The numbers I gave her was correct at last meeting.
So what were the numbers? Because I didn't get it from that.
I don't have them on at this meeting.
We just asked the percentage.
It was
of
4 out of
minorities
20, so the percentage was 20%.
20%?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Michael, may I have a
Second that.
Second by Tim. Thank you all.